Hi everyone, we're back with another video looking at how to improve our writing skills for Functional Skills English, both Level 1, Level 2 and also for ESOL. I also just want to thank everyone that's liking and subscribing these videos. We've recently hit 100 subscribers, so thank you again for your continued support. It really helps us out. So this video is going to look at how to improve the word choices that we make in our writing to help create a bit more clarity for the reader. So why is vocabulary important and how can we upgrade our words? So vocabulary is key to reading comprehension. Readers cannot understand what they are reading without knowing what most of the words mean. As children, we learn to more advanced texts that must learn the meaning of new words that are part of their own oral vocabulary. So basically this is just saying that we naturally as we grow up we start learning more and more words and it helps us to develop. Obviously if you're someone who is English as a second language and you're trying to build up your skills, then this might be a little bit harder. So this is going to be something that you definitely will find useful and might be able to apply to your writing in the future. How can we upgrade our words? So a good thing to think about is developing a reading habit. Vocabulary building is easiest when you encounter words in context. We can upgrade our words by speaking English with native speakers. So again, if you work in an environment with other people who speak the English language, force yourself into that situation to actually speak their language. I know it might be a little bit uncomfortable, but the more that you do this, the easier it's going to be to actually comprehend the language and get used to the kind of words we're using every day. English. Read a variety of fiction and non-fiction texts. Again, so when we're talking about fiction, we mean things like novels and books and things like that. When we mean about non-fiction, we mean articles, blogs, leaflets, really all the kind of things that you need to encounter within the functional skills course. And the final one there, review and improve your writing, focusing on synonyms of key words. So if you do produce a written response, either when you're practicing by yourself or in your normal English lessons, it's important that you don't throw that away, that you look back at your work, you review it, and we try and assess which words have you used that are effective and which words could we improve. If you don't know what we mean when we're talking about synonyms, when we're talking about our key words, don't worry too much. We're going to go ahead and look at it now in more detail. What is meant by the word synonym? So, for an actual dictionary definition, this is what it would look like. So, a synonym is a word or phrase that means exactly or nearly the same as another word or phrase in the same language. So, for example, if we think about the word shut, another word that you could use for that is close. So, if you say, I'm going to go and shut the door, it means exactly the same thing as using the word close. And the reason why we'd use a synonym often is just to make sure you're not repeating the same words. So if you are talking about the same topic, it's going to get really easy to use the same words, and that's going to make it seem quite boring and quite dull for the reader. So we want to make sure that we're thinking broadly about the different synonyms you can use to make your writing more effective. Now, you may have actually looked at our previous video, and that was looking at how to write a review based on a takeaway that you might have had. One of the key words that you might have used is the word tasty. Now, tasty is a fantastic word to describe food if you're talking about it in a positive sense, but if you're doing it over a written response that is 200 to 250 words, as most of the functional skills assessments are, it's going to get very repetitive if you're using the same word over and over again. So what we need to think about now is what words could you use to replace tasty so that you're not using this word time and time again and it doesn't get quite boring or quite dull for the reader. Okay, so another synonym you could think of for tasty is delicious. Now this is a fantastic word to use because it really tells us that you're enjoying the food, and the examiner also might award you an extra mark just for being able to spell this word correctly. Any word where you're repeating the same letter more than once is kind of quite tricky, especially for those of us who are English as a second language. So delicious is one of those words that is slightly harder for you to spell. If that is something that you struggle with, then maybe make a note of any words that you think will be difficult and try to learn those as spellings, because again, the spelling component is actually quite important for functional skills. It's also a really good thing to develop if you're intending to take this on to GCSE. Another word you can use for tasty is succulent. Now again, that's a really effective one, especially if you hear about the way that you pronounce that word succulent. You can almost hear the saliva in my mouth as I say it, and succulent makes you think that it's actually getting that saliva gland going. It's getting you to actually think about how lovely and how tasty that food is. The next one, mouth-watering. Now mouth-watering is a good one to use because it also allows us to use a hyphen, and the hyphen is like the dash that you can see between the words mouth and watering. This is a really good word to use, especially if you're talking about the kind of smells that you get from kind of certain takeaways or restaurants that make you crave the food before you've even had the chance to see it or to taste it. Appetizing. So seeing something that makes you want to enjoy it, actually makes you have a good appetite and makes you feel hungry to actually engage in eating whatever it is you're describing. So if you look at all of those words can be considered synonyms of the word tasty. So if you have actually wrote your review on your takeaway, it's important that you do take a bit of time to go back and review it and make sure that you're changing up these words as well. So if you look at the teacher's top tip then before we move on, whenever you're doing your writing, it's important that you think carefully about the specific word choices you make, what effects you want them to have on the reader. Okay, so if you think about context, which we're going to look at in a little bit of time as well, context is extremely important. So you wouldn't potentially use delicious if you're talking about an item of clothing, but you would use it if you're talking about food. So there's certain kind of adjectives that work well in certain situations, whereas in other situations you might want to choose a more appropriate word. If you struggle to come up with different synonyms, it's important that you get used to looking these up. You can use a thesaurus to do this. Alternatively, you can use your phones. Generally within the exam, you won't be allowed to use your phones, but it's still good to just get you thinking, and hopefully you can retain some of those ideas and use them when you produce your own response. Look at the images and match them to the different emotions and feelings that are listed below. So the ones that we're looking at then, we've got anger, happiness, hunger, and sadness. So these are just a range of different feelings and emotions that you might be writing about in any kind of written exam within your functional skills course. And as we can see there from the images, that eat is obviously going to be related to hunger. The frowny face, the little emoji thing that you see there in the top right hand corner, is supposed to represent anger. And then we've got happiness, the little one with the two circular smiling faces down there at the bottom. It's important that whenever you're thinking about how we express our emotions, that you're actually thinking very carefully about the types of words that you use. For example, sad is not a very intelligent word. It might be good for one occasion, but if you are talking about something that you're unhappy with, for example, if you are completing a task on one of our previous videos, maybe on writing a complaint, rather than saying sad, you might want to think about a more appropriate synonym to use to help vocalize that situation a bit better. When we think about these different emotions, it's important to think about how can you actually express these in your writing, and what would be the most appropriate words that you can use as well. Look at the table and research the synonyms that can be used instead. So we have the same words that we were looking at the previous part of the video. So we have our emotions there on the left hand side. So we have happy, sad, angry, hungry, and tired. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause the video here, try and research these words by yourself. It might be that you know a few different variations that you could use, a few other synonyms that you could use instead of the ones that we have there for those emotions. And if that's the case, that's great. If not, use a thesaurus or use the internet to try and research and get to know a few different words that you can use instead. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to have a look at the kind of ones I've came up with. So if you'd like to use any of these in your own writing, please feel free to do so. It's going to add to your writing and just make it that much more entertaining for the reader. Class feedback. Check your answers against the ones below. So we can see there again, we've got our emotions there on the left hand side, and we have a number of different synonyms on the right. So for happy, we have words like delighted, gleeful, overjoyed, and content. Sad, you have dejected, melancholy, unhappy, and miserable. For angry, we have infuriated, furious, irritated, and enraged. Hungry, so starving, famished, peckish, and malnourished. And then tired, we have worn out, exhausted, fatigued, and drained. Now, these actually change depending on the context or the situation that you're going to use them, okay? So it's really important that you understand which ones to use in the right situation. For example, if you have a look at the line for hungry, all of those are synonyms for hungry, whereas peckish means that you want like a light snack. It might be you just want a biscuit or something just to keep you going, whereas malnourished means there's something seriously wrong, that it's affecting your health. So even though those words are synonyms for hungry, it really depends on their context that they're used in. If you'd like to stretch and challenge yourself, it's important that you research the definitions of the words, and it might help you get a bit of a deeper understanding, because as we've said before, there's certain situations where words are appropriate and others they're not necessarily the case. And what we mean by that is talking about the context. What is context and why is it important? So context then is the circumstance that form the setting for an event, the statement or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood. Why is it important? It is important because it tells you the importance to place something on and better describes how we feel in specific situations. So again, if you say that you are peckish, it means that you're not really massively hungry, you just need something to kind of line your stomach, something to keep you going. But if you say that you are famished, if you say you're malnourished, these are very negative words to be using, and it helps to create a real kind of dramatic image for the reader. So have a think about the situations, the kind of context that you use these words in, and make sure you're using the most appropriate word or adjective to get your point across. Look at the extract below and attempt the challenges that follow. So the example we're going to be looking at is theoretically about my day off. As we look through it, I'd just like to think about the kind of words that I'm using and think if we can use any more appropriate synonyms to replace some of those words. So my day off. When I have a day off, I like to sleep late because I'm sleepy. I like to eat a big breakfast because after a long sleep, I'm hungry. I'm happy to have a day to myself and spend the day doing things that make me feel happy. Even if I'm still tired, I like going to the gym. Exercising makes me happy, but I get angry when there are lots of people taking up all of the machines. So what I'd like you to think about as you go through this extract is just think, what kind of impression do you get from this writing? Are the word choices really effective? Does it really explain how I'm feeling in my day off? Does it really accurately cover the emotions that I'm trying to describe? Then I'd like you to think about the super challenge. So identify 4 or more words that need to be improved. And then the mega challenge, rewrite the passage using the effective vocabulary from the previous table. So if we just have a look at this in a bit more detail, you can see there that they're using a number of the words that we looked at in our table. You've got words like hungry, you've got words like sleepy, you've got words like happy. All of these are typically quite simple words, and if you actually look at the response, it even repeats the word happy on 3 separate occasions. So if you'd like to pause the video here, if you'd like to have a go at this yourself, please feel free to do so. I'm now going to go ahead and I'm going to go through the answers. Check your answers against the improved response. My day off. When I have a day off, I like to sleep late because I'm exhausted. I like to eat a big breakfast because after a long sleep, I'm famished. Now, if you think about this, right, a lot of us do work and a lot of the time we're working very stringent hours. And then on top of that, we have a family to look after and provide for as well. So it is quite exhausting, especially for us adults, right? So when you do have a day off, generally a lot of us do like to sleep late because really you need it, right? You are exhausted, and that means an extreme sense of tiredness, not just a little bit sleepy, completely done in. You really need a bit more sleep, a little bit more rest and relaxation. So you can see there that the word exhausted is an appropriate word to use. When you use the word famished, this means that you're really, really hungry, which is understandable. If you've had a longer sleep, you've had a lie-in, it means you haven't ate during the normal time, and therefore you're going to be more hungry than normal. I'm overjoyed to have a day to myself and spend the day doing things that make me feel content. So overjoyed here is an appropriate word to use because it really states how this person must be really looking forward to having the day off. It not just makes them happy, but it actually goes a little bit above that. It makes them really, really happy and really ecstatic to have this time off. So I'm overjoyed to have a day to myself and spend the day doing things that make me feel content. And content is not really the same as being overjoyed. Content just means that you are quite happy in your situation. So you're not jumping about all happy and screamy, but you're just nice and relaxed in that situation. Last part then. Even if I'm still worn out, I like to go to the gym. Exercising makes me gleeful, but I get irritated when there are lots of people taking all of the machines. So even if I'm still worn out, because sometimes a day off can actually be quite tiring as well. So you can see that's quite an appropriate one. They've even used a word with a hyphen there, which is a good thing to use because it's getting used to using a range of different punctuation. Exercising makes me gleeful. So gleeful, I'm not sure about this word, whether it's the best word to use in this situation. So maybe you would change this or adapt it. But gleeful is kind of means you're going to be giddy, kind of very excitable and things like that. But I get irritated when there are lots of people taking up all of the machines. So irritated is an appropriate word here as well, because it's like you're not really angry or furious. It's not really that strong an emotion, but irritated is like something that's just slightly getting on your nerves. So hopefully from that you can see that this is the kind of thing that you need to be moving your writing towards. Hopefully as well you should be thinking about embedding all of those different language techniques that we've looked at in our previous videos as well, just to make this writing the most effective as possible. Reflect and review. Look over your last piece of written work and attempt the challenges that follow. So if you've been watching our previous video, you might have had a go at the task where you're writing a review about a takeaway that you've recently experienced. So if that is that case, you should go back, look over your work and try and review it. And this kind of applies to any written work you've done as well. So if you haven't watched the previous video, don't worry about it too much. You can do it with any kind of work that you've produced either at home or in your normal English lessons. So if you've got your work to hand, then the important thing to think about is that you review your work and identify any forms of low-level vocabulary. So just like the first example we went through, go through it. Are you repeating any words? Are these words not really expressing how you really want to feel? And can these be upgraded anyway? Then what I'd like you to do is go through the super challenge. So try and upgrade your words using some of the words that we went through on the table. And then the mega challenge, research some words to use to upgrade your own writing. So actually take the learning into your own hands, okay? Have a look at different words that you can find. A simple search in Google will help you to find synonyms for any of these words, and it can be really good just to show off your level of writing and your understanding of English. The more varied your vocabulary, generally the more marks you're going to get, not just in functional skills, but also when you progress from level 1, level 2, and also for GCSE as well. If you need any additional support or help, the new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, you can leave us a comment, like and subscribe, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. If you're still looking for something on our channel and you want a little bit more help, then please check out our partner channel, Bookworm Teaching, for more lessons and guidance on all things English. Thanks ever so much for listening, guys, and all the best with all your work and revision in the future. Bye.